Welcome, everyone. Come on in, sit down. We're going to start the live stream on our website because we have a number of people who are joining us across the state of Minnesota because they wanted to be here tonight. So please come in and sit down, and welcome to Hennepin Avenue United Methodist Church. So good evening. I want to introduce myself. My name is Reverend Judy Zabel. I'm the senior pastor here at Hennepin Avenue, and we're so glad to host this tonight. It is a regularly scheduled Reconciling Ministry Network meeting night, and they were going to be here anyway, and I said, well, how about we invite some of our clergy and friends and congregations from around the conference to join us so that you can hear just a few moments, a little bit about the RMN. Some of you are already member churches in the Reconciling Ministry Network, and some of you maybe have never ever heard of it before. So I wanted to introduce the Reconciling Ministry Network leaders. And so why don't you come and introduce yourself, and then you can lead the first part of the meeting, and then when you're done, I will take over, and we're going to have a pop-up meeting to just get an update on General Conference, debriefing. Keep that short because most of you kind of know what's already happening with that, but then talk about some possible next steps in organizing ourselves so that we can move forward to do some exciting work together to move the whole church forward. So,
Can I put you on the spot to lead us in a brief prayer?
I'd be happy to. I have a mic on, so let's pray. Loving and gracious God, we come tonight because we love your church. We are here because we know that when you gather 2 or 3 together, you have promised to show up, and you are here tonight. We acknowledge that we are here because there is change in our church, your church. And it is painful for many, for all of us really, because it questions what we really believe what church is supposed to be all about, which is creating space for all people who have sacred worth, who are made in your image, to gather together and to do your work in the world with joy and hope. And so we've been rattled. And we've been changed by the decisions of the General Conference that are at such odds with that understanding of what it really means to be church. And so there are probably a lot of emotions in the room tonight: anger, sorrow, wonder, confusion. And we look and wonder what's next. Gather us in. Gather us in by the power of your Spirit. Bring us together that we might learn from one another, open our hearts to you, and see the next steps. Guide us and renew us by your Spirit as you fill us tonight. We pray this in the name of the Christ. Amen. All right.
Hi, my name is Kelly Dunn, and we're kind of an organized group without an official leader. So I'm just one of many people that have taken the role with the Reconciling Congregations in Minnesota. And again, pleased to have a good group here today. Some of the things that we'll talk about after we hear a little more from Judy is some of the activities that have been going on in the reconciling community for a number of years that we're going to continue on into 2019. So in particular, we're going to try to be present at the Minnesota Annual Conference. And so that comes up later on this year. In the past couple years, we've had a reconciling luncheon, which was well attended. Well, the schedule is much tighter this year, so there will be a reconciling breakfast again. So we need everyone to get up early, probably on that Thursday morning, and we'll figure out exactly how what we want to cover. In addition, the Reconciling Congregations have been active throughout the state in a number of Pride events. I know there's Pride events that go on down in Rochester, there's ones that go on in Duluth, and a number of the metro areas work together in the Pride just a block or two away in Loring Park at the festival booth. It's a very good thing that almost kind of our signature mission project, as we just have a presence there. We help people find a safe place to worship. We hand out medallions that are peace signs. I always hope that they go out of style, but they never do. Because it seems like we're always at war or something like that, which is a sad commentary. But people really like receiving that little peace badge. We also hope to have a float in the Pride Parade. We got to work out the details on that for this year, so that's another project that we do. Our group of the Minnesota Reconciling Congregations will meet again on the second Thursday of April at 7 o'clock. So because we've got so much on our plate, we're going to try to have another meeting to make sure that we get it all done. We need to find out from the group here if there's some legislation or resolutions that need to get passed at annual conference. I'm not an expert at that. I know there's many of you with skills, but there should be some strategic things that we do to make sure that at annual conference this issue gets brought forward. The other good news is we're getting a lot of inquiries from across the state about people that are interested in being reconciling congregations.
Yay.
And so I've even heard, and I need to follow up a little more closely, but we've got some clergy up in the the Dakotas that are reaching out to us because we're the closest center of reconciling movement, and so we want to get those folks involved. I happen to be going now down in Onalaska, and guess what? Saturday, I'm giving a presentation to the Onalaska United Methodist Church on how to become reconciling. We'll see if the Holy Spirit moves them to do it, but I think for some of the churches that have been more in the middle and haven't necessarily stepped up, this is a time for conversations and reflection and hopefully moving towards helping, because we are a group that needs strength in numbers. If we have 100 clergy or 200 clergy who sign the altar for all, there's no way they can put them all on trial. So it's those types of things that I, again, look to Gandhi or Martin Luther King of civil disobedience, and I believe, that the Bible trumps the book of discipline. And so if you follow what the Bible is telling you to do, sometimes you have to do things that make a statement. And again, we're not trying to go into all of that today, but I would encourage, if any of you hear of churches that want to become reconciling, we have people who are willing to help. I know our Reconciling Ministries Network out of Chicago is overwhelmed with responses. I've sent some messages there. I haven't heard back. It's not because they're bad people. It's just they've been adding lots of reconciling individual members. Each of you, even if your church is not reconciling, or if it is, you can become an individual member of the Reconciling Ministries Network. Go to their website, sign up, because the more numbers we have, that helps the broader cause. So lots of things going on. I know a little bit later on we're going to look at some social media things in our smaller group activities as follow-up. We're not going to get into that at great detail right at the moment. The other fun thing that we have is we're Methodists. We like to have gatherings. And what do we do at gatherings on a Sunday around noon? Well, we have a potluck. So I think, do we have some people from Eden Prairie here? There we are. So Eden Prairie is taking their turn this year, and on the last Saturday of the month, which is March 30th, starting at about 11:30, people will gather at Eden Prairie United Methodist Church. They're hosting an event, and this is open to everybody from your church, so you don't have to be on the coordinating team. We want to get people involved, get together, and hear what's going on in the movement. It's going to be an evolving thing, because all of a sudden people are rallying together to find out what are we really going to do to make real change, to become a truly affirming church that welcomes all of God's children, and we'll move forward from there. So like all of you probably followed the activities at the special session of the General Conference. We saw what happened there. The bigger challenge that we even have in Minnesota is in May of 2020, it's coming up here. And so I'm sure the annual conference will be looking for volunteers, but we also will need volunteers to work in concert with the other 13 groups that we have that's part of the Love Your Neighbor Coalition. I'm out of their loop, so I'm not sure exactly what's all planned, but I'm very confident that we'll have a strong presence, we'll be advocating, we'll be present, and we will have to continue our work to pressure the church to figure out a way how to deal with what they call an issue that we know impact real people. We want to make this church affirming. So keep that in the back of your mind, that how can you at your local church gather more people to help to be present, because it's going to come to a head again, depending on whatever decisions people are able to propose, so that we again can truly move the church forward into the direction that ultimately will have to go. So for Minnesota Reconciling Congregations, again, help us with the parade. We need some people to step up in leadership roles. We want to be present at Minnesota Annual Conference. We want to support our annual gathering. We're going to look at other activities that we're going to do. And our next meeting, again, will be about a month from now here at Hennepin Avenue. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Judy. I'm glad that she is helping us. And we are a state-run organization. We're not just in the Twin Cities, and we can even be a little bit of a regional impact to help their friends in the Dakotas or Western Wisconsin as well. So with that, we'll find out reactions, what's happened. The dust is starting to settle a little bit, so we got to swirl it up again.
That's right. Thank you. Thank you so much, Kelly. Appreciate you being here tonight and inviting us to your meeting that we kind of hijacked. I was thinking about the meeting that we were going to have at the Reconciling Ministry Network, and while I was at the clergy gathering on Monday. And I thought, well, what a great time when people are ready to do something, want to do something, in not to react, but to make a response, and to be able to help do something positive. And so we invited all of the clergy, and some of you are here tonight. Many of you have, so this became a pop-up meeting. So thank you for coming out at short notice. We will be having more and more meetings in the future, so we can plan and decide what actions we can take to move forward. But I wanted to just give you a recap quick for those of you who are laity, who are not at the clergy session, or maybe didn't spend a lot of time watching the live stream. I'm just going to ask you to raise your hand if you're really not sure what happened at General Conference. Aha, we have one. And I'm glad you're here tonight, because that's one of the reasons we gather, is just to really help people understand. There is a full debriefing that I did here at Hennepin Avenue United Methodist Church last week, and it's on our website if you want to download that as a podcast, and it goes into great detail on all the actions of the General Conference. But I'm going to do a skimming flyover view tonight just to bring you up to speed, so it can refresh our memories for those who already know. And then I'm going to talk to you about some things that I'm hearing that is happening. And then I'm going to ask you to break into groups and talk about what's happening at your church and what are some things that you're thinking about doing in your church. And then we'll come back together and say and listen to one another so we can help each other. Remember, before you leave tonight, though, to make sure you sign up. Becky Boland, who is just an amazing woman who is part of this congregation, has offered to help coordinate the movement. We're creating a new movement. It's part of the RMN, but it's going to be bigger than that. And so none of us can do this alone, and I'm not in charge of it. I'm happy to do whatever leadership I can that's helpful, but I know our delegates are interested in leading as well, and I want them to stand right now to introduce them to you. They were on the delegation. Amy Jo Burr is here from St. Paul United Methodist Church in Mendota Heights, and she was an alternate. And Walker Bro is here from Hamlin University, but he's also on the staff at Hamlin Church, and he is here. And is there anyone else that's here? There is, I knew you were right there. Carol and I roomed together at General Conference, so I knew that. Carol Zagsma is here tonight, too. She's on the delegation. Now, there were just 4 delegates from Minnesota that went, 2 clergy, 2 lay, and then the rest of our alternates all came to St. Louis. So we had good support throughout the whole time. There were 12 of us all together, and we gathered in St. Louis for this special General Conference that the Council of Bishops called for 2019 to deal with just the paragraphs in the Book of Discipline around human sexuality. You'll recall that in 2016, we came together for a regular scheduled General Conference, and we just about split. We narrowly missed that opportunity to split. Just kidding. Just teasing. Just when we were about to split, someone said, hey, let's ask the bishops for their leadership. And so a motion was made that we would ask the Council of Bishops to help lead the church forward in finding a way where we could come together and find unity for the United Methodist Church. This is not a new issue, and most of you know that people aren't an issue. These are about real lives, real people that are in our congregations that are right here tonight. So we want to be very careful how we talk about all of this because it's not an issue. This is about life together in the body of Christ and loving one another and caring for one another. Now, all of you are here tonight because you're deeply concerned and passionate about this. And so we came to St. Louis with that same mind, hoping we could find a way forward for the whole global United Methodist Church to be together and to move forward in our ministries in ways that are life-giving and helpful in whatever context we find ourselves in. All of you know this. And so we came with hopes and dreams that God was going to do a new thing in the midst of us. And we got there and we had a whole day of prayer, and it was beautiful. And people laid down their swords, I believe, and we really did pray and have good worship together. But the next day, things began to become clear that things were probably not going to go the way that we had hoped they would. We were there to discuss the One Church plan because it was the plan that the bishops had promoted. 80% of our bishops supported the One Church plan. It would have created space in the church for people to do ministry in different contexts. You know that. It was a plan for a one big tent. But we also knew there was going to be some opposition coming because we knew that the WCA, the Wesleyan Covenant Association, has been working for 3 years, since 2016, to form another denomination. And we knew that they were coming to the conference to say, if we don't get our way, we will leave. And our way is the traditionalist plan. That's what they wanted. And so I'm not even sure that they thought that they were going to get that plan. I think they were thinking they would probably get the One Church plan passed, because they were registered in 50 states to start a new denomination, and they have already written a new book of discipline. So they came to the table already decided, if we don't get the traditionalist plan passed, we're going to leave, and they had scheduled April 25th as their convening conference to begin the new denomination. So serious business. As you know, we were all surprised that the traditional plan passed. It passed by a small margin, only about 50 votes. And it, instead of removing the language that is prohibitive in our book of discipline around the hurtful language, rather, that says that homosexuality is incompatible with Christian teachings, and instead of removing the prohibitions against gay marriage, and instead of removing the parts that say that we can't ordain gay clergy, they remain, and with additional punishments, additional penalties for clergy who will perform gay marriages, additional penalties for bishops who will ordain gay clergy. And so we are in a position where we are hurting because it's not looking good. As we were looking over the delegation, it's 864 delegates. There were about 830-some delegates there because some were not able to get visas. But in your handout, you'll notice that out of 864, 58% came from the United States, 30% came from Africa, 90 remaining delegates were from the Philippines, Europe, Eurasia, and 10 from concordant churches. Concordant churches are churches that have relationship with the United Methodist Church, and they have voice but no vote, most of them, but they have formal relationships with the United Methodist Church. So the Mexican Methodists, I think that there were some others there as well. 31 delegates were absent during General Conference because of their visas. Why is this important to go over the delegate counts? Because the number of delegates will be the same in 2020, 864 delegates, and the position will be much the same in terms of the distribution across the central conferences and the jurisdictions. However, there will be some shifting. Minnesota had 4 delegates on the floor at any one given time. We had 4 delegates. And in 2020, we will have just 2. Just 2. And so what we know is that if we looked at a graph, and if you go on the website to my debriefing, you'll see there's a graph there that shows what the delegate counts were for the U.S. Church and what it was for the central conferences back in 2004. And then you see that it goes like this. And over time, in 2024 and 2028, it will cross over. There will be more African delegates than U.S. delegates if we all remain church together. So what that means actually, even though 66% of the U.S. delegates voted for the one church plan, or a more inclusive church and contextualized ministry, a big tent church, that means that 33% of our delegates from the U.S. voted for the traditionalist plan, along with most of the Central Conference delegates. What's going to happen in 2020 and 2024 and 2028 is we're going to see an increase of Central Conference delegates. There are some people that believe that because the votes were so close, 50 votes, that if we work harder, we might be able to turn this around. The likelihood of that is really not very good. And I'm just saying this because I believe that we need to come to terms with that reality. There are more and more Central Conference delegates that will be joining the General Conference in 2020, 2024, 2028. It is unlikely that writing legislation, it's my opinion, you could disagree with me, it's perfectly okay. It's unlikely that writing more legislation to try to get the one church plan passed, it's very unlikely that it will pass. The votes are not there. Mm-hmm.
What might happen, though, with the numbers if, for example, the African church or the Asian Pacific church, the Philippines, for example, leaves? How might that make it a greater possibility?
It could shift, but what most people that I've been talking to across the connection, and I've been really watching this in different areas, and I put some websites for you on the listing so that you can check these websites and watch the blogs, and there are other ones that you probably know about that I don't know about. And I'm also in some conversations with some connectional leaders across the connection. And what most people are saying is that the differences that we have are intractable and irreconcilable. That's depressing, isn't it? But I do think we have to come to that reality and to think about that. If that's true, then what does that mean for us? There are some conversations occurring that are talking about split, amicable split. The conservatives have wanted this, as I said, since 2016 and have made plans to do this, and I think there's some talk of that, having a split. And so what would that mean? Some of you have been watching Adam Hamilton's blogs. He's been pretty public, and he is talking about starting a new denomination that would be an inclusive denomination that is Methodist, that would be formed around the one church plan, perhaps. And so I'm watching, I imagine many of you are watching to see what happens with that. He's meeting with some people across the country, and there's some talk that he will be having a big open meeting at the Leadership Institute this fall in Leawood, and kind of rolling out his dream or his thoughts after connecting with people across the connection over the next several months. And so I don't know who's in on those conversations, but I do know that I'm in a group that he's in, so I'm getting some of that information firsthand. So there's a serious time in the United Methodist Church, and yet I believe there really is hope, because I think that God always brings new things that we can't see yet or that are unexpected. And so nobody in this room, including myself, knows what's going to happen yet. We don't know if the church will split, and what will that mean, and does that mean we could start something new, and maybe we all start something new. It could mean that we do go back in and just continue to push. But I do want us to understand that if we decide to go back in and fight for a unified church, it's not likely, because the Africans, and this isn't to blame them, but the Africans and the Wesley Covenant Association, the Good News Movement, the IRD, are very, very adamant. They will not bend. There is no light between the crack. There is no openness in any groups that I've talked with. The conservatives, there is absolutely no budging. Now, the one church plan was our hope, because we in the centrist and progressive camps have said, we can imagine a church with traditionalists in. We think, it's not where we are at, but we understand that in Africa it's against the law to be homosexual, and you get caught, you could be killed. And we know that they're struggling with polygamy. It's not about homosexuality as much as it is polygamy. And we know that those conversations are not ripe yet. Those are hard. But they have come out recently. Jerry Kulaw has sent, maybe some of you read his article saying, no, we don't want the Americans to think that we are ignorant and we don't know what we voted for. We voted for this because we believe in scriptural orthodoxy and doctrinal purity. So basically he's saying, we Africans know what we're doing. We chose this. Don't belittle us by saying you really just didn't know what you're doing and you need money from the American church. Why didn't you vote? So it gets complicated and political. But I just wanted to say that there are some things that we'll need to do to figure out what our next steps are. And I'm hoping that we'll all work together on that. I think one of the things, if a new denomination starts, and maybe there'll be two new denominations, one that is conservative, traditional, and one that is progressive and centrist, maybe they'll be splintering. I hope that we in the United Methodist Church in Minnesota could work together so that whatever happens, we can move together. We either agree to stay together or in the United Methodist Church, or that we would move together to a new denomination that is Methodist and inclusive, but that we would stay together as the Minnesota Annual Conference. I think we have something beautiful here. I think we've been living the one church plan for decades in this conference. And I think there's something really powerful about that, and it's a great witness to the world about how people can view things differently and remain in a church together and be healthy and vital. So that's where I'm at. So what am I seeing out in the connection? And then I'll let you do the talking. Most of you saw the German church has put out a statement. The New England Conference has put out a statement. And the Michigan Conference, the clergy in the Michigan Conference has put out a statement saying we'll resist and will not uphold the discipline. The Minnesota Annual Conference clergy, yours is ready. We can thank Mariah Furness-Tolgard, who got together with some of our clergy, and they wrote a statement, a pastoral letter, an open letter to Bishop O, and it is at www.minnesotamethodist.com. And org, and it's on you don't have to write it down because it's right on the back of your sheet. And if you haven't seen it yet, you will see it tomorrow. It will be coming out. She was going to send it out this week. So that'll be a letter. It's a great letter. Mariah did a wonderful job with her team. And it says, I didn't bring it to read to you today because you'll have a chance to see it, and it will be, if you go to that website, all of you can see that, and it'll be, sign it. and send it in. We want to gather as many signatures as possible. And now it comes from elders, deacons, like local licensed pastors, and it is from the clergy. But I am going to encourage the laity to get going and to write a letter. And to have that letter go also to the Minnesota Annual Conference and to Bishop O, so that we can stand together, because we, the clergy, are not the church. We are all the church together, clergy and laity. Wanted to also let you know that LeaderWise, the group that helps credential our clergy in the sense that they do the psychological testing. It used to be North Central Ministry Development Center. It's called LeaderWise now. They've contacted me and have said, can we come to Hennepin and set up some group support for clergy? So it'd be groups of 4 or 5 clergy. You can come and help process this and be with a counselor that's trained to do that, and we're going to provide the space free of charge for that. If you want to be a part of that or know that your pastor might need that, the information is on the back of your sheet today to take home, and you can call LeaderWise and register. So that'll be an opportunity for you as well. So what can we do next? We can pray, and we're going to break into small groups soon, and we'll have things to add to our list. But first, I want to really encourage you to pray for the LGBTQ and all of us who support them, and remember that we are all in this together. On Sunday at our debriefing, I asked everyone to raise their hand who either was LGBTQ, if they were willing to raise their hand. They didn't have to. Nobody's forced. Or if they had a family member, or if they had a close friend, and almost every single hand was raised. And people could see across the Hennepin sanctuary that, we are the church, and the church includes LGBTQ in large numbers. And so we want to continue praying, because even though the dust is settling, there's a lot of people hurting. So we want to continue to hold each other in prayer. Keep praying for the United Methodist Church. My husband and there's a team in Biwala, Sierra Leone right this minute. I didn't go with them. I was supposed to, but I stay home to sort of keep the home fires burning, or keep them from burning down. But remember that even though we have disagreements across the central conferences in the U.S., we are a global church, and we may have anger. That anger is real. I've had it. I have it. Frustration, sorrow, disagreement, and yet they are in this. We are all one church as of today, and we need to continue to pray for the ministries that are happening across the globe in the United Methodist name, because they're significant. I said to my team before they left, when I was praying for them and blessing them as they were going on their way, I said, remember that the 900 children we feed in Biwala every day have no part in this discussion. They have no bearing on the choices that were made. Please remember that they are beloved children of God as well, and we need to continue to hold them even in our disappointment. I'm going to urge you to build bridges. Sometimes the conservatives are better at organizing than we are. They are really well organized because they continue to work together even when they disagree about minor things, and they find what they can agree on. They can take the steps forward, and they know they don't agree on every point. And sometimes I've been told, I'm not an expert on this, Walter's a better expert on this, but sometimes the centrists and the progressives don't always align and talk to each other well. Is that right?
Correct.
Yeah. And I've been thinking and praying about this a lot. If we go in dividing into our camps, we will not be able to do the things that we need to do. We really need to be humble, in my mind. I think we need to really come to this with some humility and say, we are not going to get everything we want, and we are stronger if the centrists who would say, I love the progressives, we don't always agree on everything, but we got to work together to form a new thing, a new movement, or a new church, or a new denomination. We've got to come together and build the bridges. And that's going to take some work. And it's just not going to be easy. It's just not going to be easy. But I think that we would be stronger if we would do that. That's my opinion. No one said you should say that. That's just what I believe. I'm telling you that every time I gather with the downtown clergy and the rabbis and the imams and the Lutherans and the Presbyterians, and I do that once a month here in Minneapolis, I'm reminded that we have differences with everyone around the table. There are doctrinal differences. And yet there's so much we do together that's powerful around homelessness and about other issues. And so we have to remember that even though we're really angry, some of us, with the right, with the WCA, the Good News Movement, the traditionalists, you know, if we split, I'm sorry, there's a good chance we're going to do that. There's probably a better chance than anything else. They will continue to be optional. They could be our ecumenical partners. They'll be Methodists. We're Methodists. We're going to be in the same family. We might be in different denominations, but we'll want to continue to work with them on some things. And so let's try to turn down the heat enough to not be enemies. Let's not demonize the other side. It's so easy to do that, and especially when our culture encourages that. So I'm just going to ask you to pray about that, because you might not be there yet, because the hurt is so deep, and that's real. And I'm not trying to diminish that. It's real, and I understand, well, I can only understand a bit, I'll just say. I'm going to ask you also to lean on your district superintendent, Dan Johnson, or whoever your district superintendent is. Dan, thank you for being here tonight, because, yeah. Yeah, Dan has been so supportive since the day I got back from General Conference. We had a meeting right away and talked about any number of things, and I just experienced great support from Dan. He's understanding of where Hennepin is as a reconciling church. We've been reconciling since early 80s, I found out, not 93. We've been reconciling a long time, and so I came to Dan and also to our bishop and said, you know, this is a big deal for Hennepin. We cannot turn back. We're going to stand firm even if it means leaving the denomination. And so we've really had to have open conversations. And I've said to Dan and the bishop, we want to be your partners. We don't want to be your adversaries. And so I received that support from Dan and Bishop O, and I know you would too. So don't go there and threaten things, or get on, or go thinking you have to be to fight the conference. They're not. I don't experience the. Yeah, we're on the same team. So I just want to give that witness, because some of you I know are in churches that are thinking about leaving, and I think we need to wait and see what happens across the connection. We need to work for justice together, and we should not let up. But we need to band together and watch what God is doing and take those steps one at a time. Don't bolt. Because the conference is ready to support, I think, in some ways that might surprise you. Stay engaged in your local congregations. There will be some people who will want to walk away. Go find them. They're like lost sheep. You should go back and see if you can find them and say, hey, we're in this together. We're stronger. Our church hasn't changed any. The denomination may have made some decisions we don't like, but we still have work to do in our neighborhood, and we're doing good things, and we need to stick together and support the church financially and with our time, our prayers, presence, gifts, and service. So I hope you bring that message continually back to your congregation, that we're in this together, and these are hard times, but let's walk them together. And then I mentioned the others. These are some sites that might be helpful for you. On the sheets back there, if you have additional websites or links that you would like to share with the whole group, we will send those out tomorrow. Make sure you sign in, because we want to keep track of everybody who wants to be informed. It's so easy in a conference, even as small as ours, for little groups to start working on things, and that's great. You know, nobody's saying don't do that. But it would be great if we can talk to each other. And so, as I said, Becky Bolin, who's sitting right here, some of you know her, some of you don't. Wave your hand, Becky Bolin. Becky has said that she would take care of keeping a roster and keep track of all of us so we can keep that communication going strong. Does that make sense to everybody? All right, and hopefully that will be helpful. Are there any questions that you would have of me today, before we break into small groups and chit-chat?
If you get a question too, if you can repeat it so that the people can hear it.
I'm going to do better. I'm going to pass this around and just talk into it so that the live stream people, that they can hear too.
So I'm Sandy Christie. I attend here at Hennepin. But I'm wondering, you mentioned the statement that the clergy of the Minnesota Conference have put together.
Mm-hmm.
Is there more that you can share about the tone of Monday's meeting? How many clergy attended that, and what kinds of discussions there were?
Yeah, we had a debriefing. It was 260 clergy there, I think. That's what it was registered. It may have been a few more, a few less, but right around 260. Bishop O called us together. District superintendents were there. As you know, the majority of the Minnesota Annual Conference is centrist to progressive, and so a lot of pain in the room, and I think anxiety. How do we lead well in our congregations to keep the wheels from coming off the train or off the bus? We are pastors, want to do a good job. They want to be a calming presence and yet keep the urgency up high enough to keep things moving. There's some anger. We're very disappointed, but it's also fair to say we do have a portion of our conference who are evangelicals who were happy that the traditionalist plan passed. It's a smaller portion than, say, in the Dakotas. They have more conservatives in the Dakota Conference. They weren't there, but there is an element, and in our conference, we have some work to do in building bridges. And if we're going to move together as a conference, no matter where that direction goes, we would be smart, I think, to start having some intentional conversations to listen to the traditionalists in our annual conference, to help them feel included and to help them know that they matter to us and that we want them to remain in the church with us. I think that that's Christ-like, and I think that that's important bridge building that will help us be stronger in the future. But that was the tone in the room. There were others that were there, and if anybody wants to speak to that, jump right in. That'll be fine.
John McBride from White Bear Lake. Judy, I just have a quick question about Germany. I know they issued their statement, and they seem to be taking some action apart from the General Conference. Can you explain why they may have some autonomy that we would not have? Yeah,
that's a great question. Why does Germany have more freedom to say, we're just not going to do this? Most of you have been told all your life in polity class and everywhere else that we have one global discipline, but that's not quite true. There is one discipline that all United Methodist churches use, but in Europe and Africa there have been adaptations to the Book of Discipline. And really the striking thing is that in the One Church plan we were really asking for that same freedom in the U.S., and that's been denied. But they were able to make that strong of a statement because they do have a bit of autonomy. Not complete. They're not an autonomous conference. They're not like the Mexican Methodists or the Caribbean Methodists, but they do have some ability by discipline, permission given in the discipline for the central conferences to make adaptations for their culture, and that's legal because that is in our discipline. Yeah, Walter.
I just wanted to have people aware that you need to keep paying attention. The Judicial Council meets in April. And likely will throw out either part or all of what passed. It's not inconceivable that they just say the whole thing is too tarnished and they throw the whole thing out, or they may throw out parts of it, or they could do, there are a lot of briefs going in, a lot of people have a lot of different theories.
Yeah.
And it will be very important also to listen to what the response to that is, specifically from the Wesley Covenant Association, because they're the ones who are talking about leaving. So I want us all to pay attention, and many of the things that happen in the next month and a half around this and 2 months are part of how we understand the strategy of where we even go into annual conference, of what we would do for legislation or things like that. So when Judy says to pray, I want to say amen. And instead of the word wait, or along with the word wait, I would use the word prepare.
Yes, I agree.
It's a good Lenten piece, that this is the time that we're not just waiting to see what happens, but we are preparing to be actors on the stage when the light turns on to us.
Yes, that's right. And there were 18 petitions that were connected to the traditional plan. 10 of them have already been ruled unconstitutional. The ones that have been ruled constitutional by the Judicial Council already, those will go into the Book of Discipline. They have already been passed, and they cannot be changed except for by additional legislation in 2020. That's my understanding.
We'll talk later. That's not quite a legal reality.
All right, good. All right. There are the petitions, if you haven't seen all of them, the ones that have been ruled constitutional and unconstitutional, they're on the General Conference 2019 website. You can go on that page and it lists all of them. So, who's next?
I am.
Yeah.
Stephen Hill. I'm here at Hennepin Avenue, and I think I may direct this question actually to Walter.
Yep.
Because it is directly related. Because my question was, if the Judicial Council throws it out, then is 2020 status quo ante? Is it a return to 2016?
If the Judicial Council, right now, nothing goes into effect until January 1 of 2020.
That's right.
And if the Judicial Council throws it out, and there is an argument out there that because the whole plan is flawed and was all tied together as one plan, that maybe the whole thing should be thrown out. The bishops are arguing that, and about 18 other people are writing really interesting legal briefs for why that should be the case. If it is thrown out, then essentially nothing will have happened around this, and we stay with the same discipline that we have right now until the next gathering of the General Conference
That's right.
in 2020.
And there's also
Yep.
disaffiliation petitions that passed, but some of the parts of those disaffiliation petitions are also been ruled unconstitutional. The stuff that did pass that will hold is the stuff around West Path, because we were committed as a group to care for our retired clergy. Yes.
My name is Randy Cirksina. I'm the pastor at the Ellendale United Methodist Church. And I know my folks, and I was encouraged by something that you said, Judy. And I hope I'm quoting it okay. The conference is ready to support in ways that might surprise you. And frankly, I was encouraged by that, and I have parishioners that will want to know, and they'll ask me, how specifically does she know that, and what are the ways? Because they're hurting too.
Yes, they are.
And
we
so
should pray for them.
if it's not too much to ask, if you can address it, it'd be helpful, at least for me, in my pastoral care for them, if you don't mind.
I don't mind. I don't have the answers because I can tell you what my experience is. I don't know what all of the district superintendents are going to do, but as I said, Dan is my district superintendent, and when I went to see him, he was an excellent listener and did not try to persuade me or dissuade me. He was simply willing to listen to where our ministry is here at Hennepin and what our context is, and really listen to my heart. You know, when we're in grief, when we meet with families who have had a death in the family, we don't come in with all the answers of how we can make it better. We come in and we listen first, and we say, tell me how it is for you. What's your story? And then we start to think about next steps, and it'll depend on each church. Some churches will say we want to disaffiliate, and I suppose that conversation will be different. We haven't had that conversation yet. There might be people who say, you know, we love the traditionalist plan, but we also have people in our congregation who are in different places. How do we manage that and lead through that? And again, we have to listen carefully and try to build those bridges. Sure. Yeah, and Dan, you're right here, so I didn't want to put you on the spot, but I'm glad you're willing there. That's good.
So, Cindy, are you here too?
Oh, there's
A
Cindy.
couple things that we could, a couple things that I think we can share. That there will be a statement from Bishop O by the end of the week, by noon tomorrow. that will be coming out that I think you'll find supportive of this effort. I myself have signed the clergy letter that is going out, probably released. We wanted to allow the bishop to lead with a statement, and then the clergy respond to it. It seems more interactive and appropriate, so that's why the timing of this in part. Another is both the cabinet, Cindy Gregerson, and our communications office have designed now an integrated communication plan too, for both internal and external communications. One thing I think we're quite excited about is we know that the brand of the United Methodist Church has been severely damaged by all this. There's a creative response to that, providing, what did we decide on, $1,000? $1,000 grants, very simple. I mean, we're just talking about basically a couple statements of what you want to do with that. Within a week's time, $1,000 turned back around to every local church to do a public ad campaign, social media, whatever you think would be helpful to address the brand of the United Methodist Church in your locale. Our communications office will even help you design the graphics, the verbiage for social media, whatever that would be. We want you to own your image in the community, and together we address that brand. The other part on the internal communications, we need to begin working together so that there's not secrets on who's doing what.
Right, exactly.
So that we have what Becky Boland is doing and what the annual conference is doing are seen as partners in this whole effort.
Absolutely.
And so we're initiating a weekly communication release there's a series planned of about 7 different themes now, all the way through April. So watch for those going out. Everything from fact sheets to impact of apportionments, should you decide to be escrowing those. You need to be able to see the kind of negative impact that it has on us collectively if we aren't in this together, but a variety of other themes too. Cindy, anything that you'd want to add? Cindy Gregerson is our Director of Ministries.
Church, connecting ministry. I would just add a couple things. One, to echo Judy, and I don't think I'm wrong to kind of public this, but there's been really conversation to say the church is broken, it's changing. We don't know what it's changing to. Could something happen in 2020? I'm still the believer every denomination comes to Minneapolis to solve their sexuality issues. Maybe we can do it here in Minneapolis in 2020. I don't know. Lightning hit Central Lutheran Church, so I'm not saying it's not without, whatever. But, it happens. Let's go. Let's make it happen in 2020. This is where but we're not waiting for 2020. So I think what we're saying is the Minnesota Annual Conference is we have learned how to live together really well and a model to the church what that looks like to do that. And if something new is going to be birthed, would it not be smart to try to get 30 annual conferences together to go as annual conferences versus cherry pick church by church by church by church? And wouldn't it be smart to do it to take whole churches? And I guess the one comment I'd add to Judy's comment about traditional churches, really what we have in Minnesota is a lot of churches like the church I worship at, which is the Well, 350 people in worship in Rosemont who are intentionally nonpartisan. We are so diverse in that one congregation that if you said today, which way are you going to go? You're not even going to lose it. You're going to lose half the people with it. One of our superintendents, and I'll just public that, Mark Miller, who's our North Star District superintendent, says, what you got to know about the North Star District is every one of our churches, 25% of the people have somebody in the family who's gay. They love the people in their church. They are welcome. It's Republican country. It's red country. And so those churches to go, they're saying, don't make us vote. So what I want to say is, as an annual conference, what we're working on this next year is prepare, be smart, do it, but can we do our work as an annual conference so 80%, 90% of our churches would want to go with to that new thing, because then we have the resources to do the new thing. And let me tell you, the WCA, they've been smart about trying to get the resources, and the resources of the United Methodist Church are wide and strong. That's right. And so if we're going to use the metaphor of divorce, well then let's be smart and not just walk away with no assets of the church.
That's right.
But we're not going to get them if we fight one another and kind of go piece by piece. So that would be my thing, and I'm saying that more as Cindy than the Director of Connectional Ministries, just to be clear about that. What hat I'm wearing. But I do think that I would say the conversation on the cabinet table is how do we do this well together? So we're positioned in 2020 to make a decision collectively together,
Right.
and ready to do that together.
Absolutely.
And can we get there first and try to model that to the church, that we can figure out how to do that?
Yeah, and I think that's going to take a lot of work of people in this room to talk to people, talk to friends, talk to their congregation members, to continue to keep that momentum of staying together and working together. I think that's going to take some intentionality that you just don't get through reading emails from the conference, and that's really good, and I'm really glad you're doing that. I think it's positive, and I think I'm so happy to hear that you're going to do that, to give us those tools to be able to have thinking and to shape our directions, and that's very good. It's wonderful. But we also have to have some gathering groups where we can sit down and say, how's it going in your church? And what are best practices turning out to be in your congregation to help bring those people together and keep them working and moving together? I think it's a kind of a grassroots thing, and it's both and. It's not an either or thing. So we're not here to organize to work against the conference. That is not why we're here, and we're not going to be ever meeting in secret. You know, I got off a meeting yesterday with some connectional leaders across the connection, and the first thing I did was I sent an email to Bishop O. I want you to be aware of this, and he knew I was going to be a part of that meeting, and I wanted to let him know. I didn't let him know every single detail, but I'm really committed to saying we have to be partners. We're in this together. We're moving together. That's my desire, and I hope it is for you too. Okay.
My name is Gary Walpole. I'm pastor of Peace United Methodist Church. I think like many of us in this room, you know, I have been very intentional in reaching out to the queer community that worships with me, and people I know had strong emotional investment in the One Church plan.
Mm-hmm.
I've been pondering now who I need to start reaching out to are those evangelicals I love.
Mm-hmm.
They are hurting and in pain just like I am.
Mm-hmm.
And to include our evangelical brothers and sisters, some of them are going to want to be part of what we want to create.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's very important for us not to just ignore their pain also.
Right, thank you. That's so true. We need the whole tent. We're going to stop for a minute because we're running out of time, and some of you need to be on your way. But I did want to give you a chance to talk in groups about how it's going in your congregation and to share some stories around that. So let's take. Is 15 minutes too long? 10 minutes? Okay, you're leading right now. Just good. Thank you for that. 10 minutes. Spend some time with the people just right around you and talk about how is it going and what do you think are next steps. And I'm going to ask Becky Bolin to take some notes if she's willing to do that. Some of the next steps that you shout out when we meet back in 10 minutes, so we can capture those and we can start to make some plans to move forward. Walter and I are meeting tomorrow morning to do some strategy work, and you're welcome to join us if you want to. That's at 9? 10. It's at 10 o'clock here at Hennepin. And these are pop-up meetings, so, you know, we're not trying to leave you out, though. That's what I'm telling you. But then we'll be reporting back all the time what we're thinking, and then we will have you kind of give us information, too. All right.
Judy, if I could just take the liberty, a lot of you asked me for copies of the sign-up sheet so you could take it and ask people to sign up. They're back here in white.
Yeah, and there's some people who have already said that they would work on some legislation, so we'll talk about that in 10 minutes after you've talked to each other. Get Mark, get set, go. All right, it's been 10 minutes. I know it's not much time, but we're going to have many more of these gatherings. I'm going to ask you to come to the mics if you have an idea or something you want to share of next steps. All right, can I have your attention? All right, if we could come together again, that would be great. While you're settling back in, we're going to be almost done, I promise. But it's too good of an opportunity to share good ideas. So we want to hear what's on your hearts tonight. And Becky said she will take some notes. But if you think of something after you go home, tomorrow if you signed in, you're going to get an email from Becky. She's going to send the link to the podcast that we're making tonight. And if you have other information to share, just send it in. You can just reply to her, and she'll have that information for you. So let's let anyone who wants to tell a little bit about their group and maybe some ideas of next steps, and Becky will take some notes.
One of the things I heard just now, and as we go forward, there's a lot of people in the congregation that just want to leave. They're fed up with us. We're leaving. And I think the rest of us here have to go to those people, encourage them to stay with us, let them know there's a way forward, that there is things that are happening that we will be able to take care of them. And so don't, reach out to those people that say, I'm out of here, and encourage them to stay with us. So.
Thank you, Jerry. Anybody else have an idea from your group of next steps or some things that you're experiencing in your own congregation?
Small church.
We wanted to get on the podcast.
Oh boy. I'm Ron Hill. I'm from Glendale United Methodist Church in Savage. We are a small church. We worship about 125 every Sunday, but we're a broad tent church. Mm-hmm. And never have we had a conversation about this kind of stuff. I am probably the first, I am the first reconciling member in our church. Am I afraid to bring it to them? Absolutely not. I've got people on the general council, on the administrative council, we call it the core team now, that are more than willing to work on that. But I am looking forward for ideas tonight. What can we do for Reconciling Ministries is one thrust. The leadership team sitting back there is another thrust, mm-hmm. And so I see, I'm just going to go on things. When I came here, I said, I need to support progressive voices. I need to email them, let them know. Everybody needs to do that, because the further you get from the battle, the more battle weary you are, and the more people forget. They forget. And so those who are leading this charge, you need to write emails to them, you need to lift them up, and you need to thank them for the hard work that they're doing. Same thing with the annual conference. You better be willing to talk about declining membership, because that's my message back at our church. Are you going to give up on the millennials? Because they were born at a time they don't even understand the traditionalist position. They don't even get it. Mm-hmm. And if you're unwilling to talk to and work with and bring Jesus to millennials, I'm not saying just on their terms. If you can't do it, you've got a major problem. And I agree with all your facts you cited. The central jurisdiction, the North Central Conference, is the fastest declining conference in professing members of all the conferences.
Jurisdiction. Mm-hmm.
Jurisdictions.
Yep.
And so if you're not going to talk to the people between the ages of 20 and 40, that's my goal. I want a plan as to how we can do that. That's what I want from Reconciling Ministries. I've looked at, how to become a Reconciling Ministry congregation. That's the plan I expect from the leadership team sitting over at the annual conference. It's not just about 2020. You got 2019 coming up here shortly.
Yes.
In Sioux Falls.
Thank you. And if you want to give to Reconciling Ministry Network, you write your check and it goes to Walker Community. Do they make it out to Reconciling Ministry Network?
There are giving to the national network, and then there's giving to the local network.
Mm-hmm.
And the local Reconciling Ministries Network collects money for the work that we do in the state. And that money, if you send it to Walker United Methodist Church with Reconciling on it, preferably in a note as well as on the check. That's what we use for the work that we do here collectively. If you send the money to Chicago, that's for the work that Chicago does organizing in the entire world. They're both great things. They are, however, different financial entities.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, Suzanne Modest.
Suzanne Modest, pastor at Living Spirit Church in South Minneapolis. I was struck by how organized the WCA was with organizing to start a new denomination. They had it all laid out. I think our next step, because we don't know what's going to happen in April with the Judicial Council or 2020 or 2024, so we need to start identifying what those steps are. Somebody needs to do that. I don't know who. Identifying those steps now and be laying our groundwork so when we need to, we can. And just having said that, Living Spirit is a multicultural congregation that leads progressive, but we also have immigrants from Africa who come with a different perspective than that, and we've learned to live together under one roof, and we value it and cherish it.
Thank you. Anyone else that want to share? Oh, there you are. Good to see Kevin.
Hi, thank you. Yeah, Kevin Schill. I thought I was retired, but doing a 6-month interim at Good Sam, which quite frankly, I'm very, if I have to be somewhere right now with this going on, I'm glad I'm a Good Sam. It's a great community to be walking through this with. Yeah, and for us, and one of the things we were talking about, for us, one of the things that became, and I know for all the rest of you too, is somebody else is telling our story in public. And one of the first things that Good Sam is doing is really we put together a communications task group for very quick response out into the community and internally. But we want to tell our own story, and somebody else, is telling who we're not. And so I don't know if others, and maybe some of the messaging that's going out there and the ways that you're doing it would be helpful. But, we've been really working now with that and put together a task group to begin to respond back out there and get the message out, as well as internally, this is who we are. We're not going anywhere. We're not changing because somebody else, as I said, has said something very different about us. And that's part of what we're really upset about.
Hi, my name is Kelly Dunn again, and I had a chance to visit with some folks from Advent United Methodist Church in Eagan. And their church is like a lot of churches where this topic is now topical, and they've wondered, what can we do to become a reconciling church if that's the consensus of the group? And so I was able to visit with them. I've actually got a written document that I'm going to be using in Onalaska, Wisconsin. I'm happy to share that. We've got other volunteers in the community that can work as kind of what we would call a reconciling coach. And so again, maybe get it to Judy or Becky and they'll forward that on to me, but I'm happy to help provide some counseling. It might be from a distance over a phone call, but to help you guide the process through. It needs to be lay-driven, in my opinion, because pastors come and go. And you want to have it be a very deliberate conversation so that all the voices are heard and people are respected, but at the same point, we can kind of work them through, teach them that being gay, for example, is not a lifestyle. And then we also keep scripture involved by we bring in books. Maybe it's Adam Hamilton's Making Sense of the Bible, or Matthew Vines has one that's a little more conservative based. So there are tools out there that we can help guide churches along the way that each of the other reconciling churches have done. And each are different, but it's not a decision for next month. It takes a lot of conversations to get good consensus.
Great, thank you. Peter. Shauna Horn.
Shauna Horn, Fairmount Avenue United Methodist Church in St. Paul, clergy. Just a couple of things that I've been thinking through on an organizational level, recognizing that what this has done is revealed brokenness in a system at the cost of human lives, or we've put human people on the altar of a broken system. And so out of Monday's meeting, there was a question about Monday's clergy gathering. One of the things that bubbled up is, what can we do? Well, one thing we can do is, as clergy, we can caucus. This is a caucusing agent, the Reconciling Ministries Network. As clergy and as laity, we can organize under values that are important to us as this new thing is restructuring itself. So that's one thing we can do, our values that are important to us. At a local level, what I'm encouraging my church to do is to lean in to their ministry, to show up and show that there's another way to be United Methodist in the world, and to not back away from the things that we do, but move forward and be innovative in our work and in our outreach. The other thing I'm encouraging my church to do, and they don't totally know this yet, the meetings are next week, but we've talked about it at a leadership level, is what does it look like to be financially secure and healthy as an environment or as a congregation, paying off debts, right, for that capital campaign we're doing and those building loans that we've had, making ourselves financially nimble for whenever there are decisions that need to be made, and then also recognizing how do we increase health and vitality among our relationships with one another within our membership so that we are ready for whatever might come ahead of us.
My name is Randy Barretto. I'm a member here at Hennepin. My husband and I joined when our daughter was born, and I just want to let you know that every week on some family web on Facebook, LGBT family pages, someone's always asking, where's a good place to go to church? So be aware that there are families, there are singles, people are looking for the church, so make sure you're still looking at how to define who we are separate from the General Conference.
Thanks, Randy. Dana, you ready? Glad you're here. Thanks for being here.
Sorry if some of you have already heard this from me. My name is Dana Newhauser. I am a deacon appointed to New City Church, a new church plant in South Minneapolis. Actually, New City just released a statement of its own today, an open letter. You can find it on our Facebook page. And I'll just lift out a couple ideas from that and from everything Tyler and I might say in public. We just encourage people to really lean in and center the voices of the marginalized. And in this particular conversation, to really not talk and plan about the queer community, but to talk and plan with the queer community. And there are actually queer clergy. So being in relationship, being in trusted relationship with folks so that we can actually center the voices of those really most impacted, the voices of the people who've been laid at the altar in kind of an unfortunate sacrificial way. And also there's conversations around how do we center the voices and experiences of people of color and queer people of color. So just, you can kind of, I'd just encourage you to read that letter for more detail. It's very well written because it's by Tyler, so,
Thanks, and thanks for all you're doing at New City Church. There's exciting work there. Well, I think our time has come to a close tonight, but I want to thank all of you for coming. And I look forward to many more conversations with the whole community and the queer community, and that we can figure out working groups out of this. So if you gave your information, we're going to have some conversations about what might need to be done based on what you've said tonight, but also as you're thinking about this and praying about it, you'll have more ideas, and we'll want you to send them to Becky through, it's called Inclusive Methodist, no? Oh, thank you, Inclusive Wesleyan. And you'll see this in your email box if you gave us your email, and we'll keep the conversation going, and then as things emerge out of that, as working groups emerge, then we'll start to ask you to keep communicating back in that, and we'll connect that to the conference so the conference knows what's going on and can be a part of that, so we're in constant partnership with you, so you're not feeling like there's this thing happening over here. So because we don't want that to happen. And RMN especially, also the things that you're doing, great work, keep going, we're with you, and want to be great partners with you. Anything you want to say?
Yeah, just again, thank you everybody for listening in on the live feed as well as to be here in person. For the working group, we will go ahead and maybe gather in Longfellow and kind of go through some of our activities. So before you head out, if you want to get involved with Pride or our upcoming gathering or social media, all those things we're working on, hang around. We'll be gone by 9 o'clock, so it'll be efficiently dealt with.
Dan, would you like to close us in prayer? Thank you.
Well, let's pray. God, we came here tonight with a variety of expectations, a variety of feelings, a variety of thoughts, but knowing that we come because we love your people, O God, we love you, and we love the church. And we confess that we have been part of an institution that has wounded and hurt so many, and at the same time has also been a light and a beacon of hope for many. And through the storm that we felt in the past several weeks, God, we pray that by holding hands, by joining hearts and minds, that we might find a way forward in you, through you, and with you and one another. And so where we need to be forgiven, God, we confess. Where we need to forgive others and reach out with hands that build bridges, help us to be willing. But God, let us not be silent. As we wait, we will also watch, we will also prepare, and we will also witness to the light and love of Christ for all people, without regard, without lines, without walls, without barriers. For that is the Christ of this Lenten journey, the Christ of both a cross and, one day, an empty tomb. It is in that spirit that we've gathered tonight, God, and in that boldness we await for new birth to come. Amen.